Talking Nerdcore, Talking Nerdcore today. We're talking Nerdcore, Talking Nerdcore our way. We're talking Nerdcore, Talking Nerdcore today. We're talking Nerdcore, Talking Nerdcore our way.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's the AnmeoverAnalyst here, and on today's episode of Talking Nerdcore, I have APhantomChimera on once again. You want to introduce yourself again?
Guess who's back?
Guess who's
again.
back?
So I'm Phantom. This is my second time on the podcast. Thanks for welcoming me back. I'm a singer, nerdcore artist, cosplayer, artist. Yes, everything. Jack of all trades, master of none. Basically.
Awesome. I know that feeling. And so today's episode, we're going to be talking about D.Gray-Man. This is your favorite anime, correct?
My favorite series of all time.
All right, so this will be interesting. So I did binge it for like the last 2 weeks, and definitely got some hot takes that we've kind of slightly talked about in DM. So this will be a fun episode.
Just for context, every single time something went on, he would text me and be like, well, that just happened.
Yep.
And I'm just like, oh, honey, you got a big storm coming.
You got a big storm coming.
So in general, what did you think about it?
I didn't care about it for like the first 50 episodes.
Okay, yeah, a lot of the first 50 episodes is either fillers or it's a lot of exposition, and it kind of is a slow burner in the beginning.
Yeah, I noticed that it was a very slow burner. I was basically having it on and then like playing video games at the same time because I hardly needed to watch it.
Yeah, because it's one of those, okay, you can definitely tell the D.Gray-Man when it was animated in the early thousands.
Yes.
Not just because of the art style, but because of the writing style. So when I say it's a slow burner, it's like you get introduced to all the main characters, and then there's just random stories that don't really, I mean, you can skip over them. It just gives you more context and more character building as opposed to getting into the actual plot, which doesn't really come until like season 3.
Yeah, and to be honest, though, at first, I didn't care about Alan at all. I cared almost more about some of the side characters. When Lavi was introduced, I fell in love with Lavi.
Oh, you told me that.
Yes, I freaking fell in love with Lavi. And then Miranda, at first, I thought was super annoying. Like, both her and Crawlery, I thought were super annoying, but they grew on me, and it was actually those filler episodes that I watched that they grew on me.
Yeah, with their filler episodes, it's sad because later on in the series you don't get as much screen time or panel time in the manga with them, so those filler episodes and those filler chapters are really the only core context that you get from characters like Miranda and Crawlery, and a few others too. Which really sucks, but at the same time, it's kind of understandable because Alan Walker is the main character. Like, you're going to follow the main character throughout the story.
Yeah.
D.Gray-Man has so many good side characters, but there's not enough time or space to go through every single thing, especially with how grand the plot line is.
Yeah, so why don't we actually kind of start off with the plot there? So
Sure.
Why don't you explain the plot a little bit?
Okay, without going into too much details, because it's a really, really big spoiler once you get to, like I said, season 3. So, D.Gray-Man follows this young boy named Alan Walker, and he is at first described as an orphan who works for the church known as the Black Order, and he is in search of the Black Order to become what is known as an exorcist. An exorcist in this world slays demons, basically, and the only way the demons come about is through people mourning. And when people mourn, this being thing called the Millennium Earl shows up. And he's like, hey, you're crying? You want your loved one back? Hey, I can do that for you. And they get tricked into thinking that they can bring their dead one back. And thus they become an Akuma.
Yeah.
And when you become an Akuma, you need to be exorcised because you're killing people.
Yeah.
And you don't have control over it. So Alan Walker becomes an exorcist, and joins the Black Order, which is a whole organization of different kinds of roles that are meant to fulfill the slaying of Akuma. So when you join the Black Order, you meet all these other different casts of characters, and you get more into the story of like why the Akuma exist, where did the Millennium Earl come from, why does he have a family, what happened to Alan's family, what happened to all these characters that made them get to the point in the story of which they start at. And then you go off into the series.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the basic gist. One thing I actually wanted to bring up is that the Akuma, they're basically living machines built for warfare, basically by the Millennium Earl.
Yeah.
With souls trapped in them. That's kind of the souls are like their battery. It's how they operate.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was weird how often Akuma show up. Like how many people get tricked into doing this? You think there'd be more people that would be like, maybe not. But it's also like there's a lot of like little things that I tend to nitpick. So
when you go into the series, especially in the manga, it kind of goes, and the anime kind of glossed over this for a little bit, but not really much. When you go into the manga, they do show that there are people that like they either know of the Black Order or they know that like bringing their loved one isn't going to be possible, and they do kind of like go, hey, like I can't grieve right now, otherwise the Millennium Earl's going to come up and he's going to cause trouble. And that is usually painted through the eyes of like the exorcist or someone who knows an exorcist, but there are people who are like, should I do that? However, because, and it kind of paints the realistic face of when the Millennium Earl shows up, he shows up when you are in your darkest moment of your grief. And when you're there, and this is just from personal experience, you will do anything to have that person back. And it doesn't even matter if you give up your body for them. They will do anything to have their loved person back. And that's why he shows up.
Yeah. And I find it so fascinating, though, that the souls, they're constantly weeping because they come back and they're like, why can't you move on without me? It's almost like me leaving hurt you so much. The souls are more in pain for those who wanted to bring them back than for themselves.
Yeah.
So that was just a kind of really cool. I really like the whole aspect of the Akuma.
And for more context in general, for anyone who will be listening, the Akuma, what they do is they start out in levels. So there's level 1, there's level 2, there's level 3, there's level 4. Level 1 Akumas is where you start at. That's when they become like their most monstrous form. And the whole natural drive of an Akuma is to kill things and level up. Because they want to get stronger and they want to get better and they want to survive longer, because that's the only instinct that they have. The soul that's trapped in the Akuma is very much aware of what is going on, but they can't do anything to control their actions. So when an Akuma is made, their first thing to do is just start killing things. And, you know, that's all they do. That's all they're programmed to do. They're kind of like, as he said, programmed like a machine with the soul as their battery. And it really, really sucks. And that's why the souls are in so much pain, because they can see all of this. And I'm sure there is some level of physical pain for them too, because they're getting, you know, in battles and shit. But sorry, language.
No, you're fine. You could swear all you want on the podcast.
Oh, bet? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So, for those of you listening, I did come down with COVID. I guess I'll say it now. So I do have a little bit of a head cold. That's why I'm a little congested. But we're doing this via the internet, so we are all good.
Sure.
So
I kind of want to go back to the one thing that you said earlier. What made you so drawn into Lavi?
I'm a sucker for good guy characters who just want to do good.
Okay.
Like genuine people. Genuine people. And the whole aspect of him being a bookman, where the bookmen aren't allowed to express feelings, they're not allowed to partake in
history,
in either side, really. They're just supposed to observe, except Lavi pretty much does not do that at all. He's constantly attacking Ukuma, but you could twist it in a way where it's like, well, he was just trying to protect himself, but really, no, he just wanted to be an exorcist to save the day.
You especially see it, I know you didn't like the first 50 or 60 episodes, but you especially see it after Lena Lee's battle with the level 3 Akuma, where he's on the ship, like,
my God, that
going
battle.
ham. He was like, oh my God, like, we're your fucking friends!
Yeah, so I love that fight. That was...
Oh, so did I! And then everything went downhill from there.
Yeah.
For her.
Lena Lee, I am so torn about her, because she had such good opportunity for character development, and then she just became the every female protagonist.
So a lot of, I know you're probably not active, or like you weren't looking up things actively like within the fandom.
Yeah.
A lot of people have had the same issue with Lena Lee, where they were like, oh, she had so much potential. And then the level 3 Akuma fight happened, and suddenly she was just a completely different character. Like, she was all, woe is me, getting trapped all the time, didn't even really attempt to make any escapes or anything that would be beneficial.
See,
a lot of people were like...
Part of me is like, it's okay for her to get trapped a little bit, because she got injured really badly in that fight, and she never had time to recover. Like, they just kind of went straight gung-ho. What really irritated me was towards the last fight when she was beating herself up. But yeah, it was kind of sitting there, and she was like almost breaking her legs, and I'm sitting there like, no, you're not helping anyone.
Yeah. She a lot of people describe her as like the really bad self-insert that the mangaka created, and she doesn't really... It's like she did at first contribute to the plot, and then as the plot went on, she was less and less relevant, especially when it comes to the relationship between her and Alan Walker. Because everyone's like, oh, at first when you start the series, you're like, oh, like she's supposed to be the love interest for Alan. But
well,
as it goes on...
I kind of disagreed with that.
No, I fully disagree with it also. Thank you. People in the early thousands set it up, or they're like, oh, like Lena Lee's supposed to be her love interest, and that's what a lot of the fandom followed for quite some time. But as you go on throughout the story, she becomes less and less relevant. And then when everyone, or not everyone really, but when someone tries to argue like, oh, like she's part of the reason why Alan is trying to like get away from the Black Order, it's like, well, she didn't really have anything to do with it. He just wants to get away from his friends in general. Because of what's going on, which is a big plot point that I'm not going to mention. But when that part happened in Hollow, where she met with him before he left, I didn't feel anything for it. She had absolutely no reason to be there, honestly.
Yeah.
There was no chemistry. Like, all of it was gone because you hadn't really had any character interactions with them two, because she wasn't relevant.
Yeah.
She just fell off.
Honestly, for me, like, I was a huge shipper of Lavi and her. Like, that seemed to make more sense. They have
an interesting relationship.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, like, I felt like they were gearing towards that more throughout the anime. Like, it seemed like at times they really
did.
They wanted, like, Alan and Lena Lee to be a thing, and then I'm like, you know what? I think it's Lena Lee and Lavi. Just the way that they interact with each other is... Maybe it's just because Lavi's so heroic and just wants to save everything, and I just feel that. Mostly after that level 3 Akuma fight.
Yeah, because he was very, like, protective of her.
Yeah.
Especially before they go into the arc. Like, he was trying to keep her together, basically.
Yeah. So,
however, on the flip side, I will say, and I'm not saying this like as a romantic, but if it was to be romantic, I wouldn't be mad about it. I have to argue, Alan and Kanda have the strongest relationship.
You're not wrong.
They do.
You're not wrong.
It kind of started out as like a I hate you, but if anyone else makes fun of you kind of relationship, I'm gonna beat their ass kind of thing.
Yeah, I see
and
that
as
a
it goes
lot
on,
in
as it
anime.
goes on, and especially into the manga, there are instances that Kanda's like, no, I'm the only one who can do that for Alan because it is my right to do it, especially after the events of Hollow, which not gonna mention what happened, but you know.
Yeah. So why don't you actually explain like Hollow and what the difference between Hollow and like regular series is?
Okay, so the first original series was 4 seasons, technically? Or was it 3? I think it's 4.
I think it was technically 3 with 4 parts.
The original series was animated in the early thousands, and they stopped after a while because the mangaka was facing a lot of health issues, so she couldn't release chapters as fast as she wanted to, and she still has that issue, but she's doing as best as she can. I keep up with the manga every 3 or 4 months whenever they release. So Hollow, the more recent chapters, but the problem was that they wanted to adapt the recent chapters that were released all in one go, and it was not a complete story. So there's a lot that happens in Hollow that's really condensed because they took so much, I should even say they took so little of so much information in those small chapters and made it into a short 12, 13 episode series, which there was a lot that they left out that they could have included. I wouldn't say it was the worst adaptation because I've seen really bad adaptations, looking at Promise Neverland season 2.
Oh my god.
But
so I
but
started
it
my
wasn't
entire YouTube channel off of Promise Neverland, like reading the manga, and like the manga was so hype. And then I died on the inside during season 2. But that's for another time.
I think everybody did. Yeah. But either way, they adapted all those short chapters into what is known as D.Gray-Man Hollow, which came out in 2016. So the animation and the art style is obviously more recent to what her actual art style and what animation today is. So from an animation standpoint, it's beautiful. Like, chef's kiss. Like, Kanda, Alan, beautiful men. But from a storyteller standpoint, it's very rushed. So, Hollow follows the same premise of Alan's still an exorcist, but there's a lot more going on to Alan, specifically because now and it's already established in the anime that there's this thing called the Clan of Noah. And what they are is the family members related to the Earl of Millennium. So the Millennium Earl has this.
I had the assumption that it was literally based off of the biblical Noah. Unless that is the Millennium Earl, the original Noah.
It is, but he's kind of like the helm of the family.
Gotcha.
So he has all these people in his family that represent the different emotions of Noah because they represent Noah's Ark Noah from Noah's Ark. So this whole family is made up of, it's like what? 13?
I think it's just 12.
14
Actually, there are 14.
13, there's 14.
There's 14, but
Spoiler.
13 active participants.
14 total, 13 active. So, we find out that in Hollow, there's something going on with the family and their members and their relationship with one another versus their relationship with the Earl and the Order and even the Exorcists, because it's a whole shit show. And we find out what, in specifics, Cross Marion, who is Alan's teacher, what his relationship with the Noahs are, and Alan Walker, what his relationship with the Noahs are, etc., etc. So Hollow gets more into that gritty detail because it is a massive plot point, and I can't really say anything in regards to that, but there's a lot that goes on just from the sole fact that he might have some relation to them. So Hollow starts that point off, but then it falls really short because the manga's not finished and they decided to rush through it. But I will say the point that I picked up from at the end of Hollow and the chapters following it, if you thought that this show was a mindfuck at some points, you are not ready for what the manga has. Trust me on that.
Yeah, I am thinking of jumping onto the manga, just mainly because I want to see the difference between the anime and the manga. I love doing these type of things where whenever I watch anime, I almost want to pick up the manga just to be like, okay, they went one direction. I hear that some of the filler that they did in the anime contradicts things in the manga.
Absolutely. A big filler that I absolutely hate in the anime was Lulubelle. Lulubelle in the anime is nothing like the Lulubelle in the manga. While it is true that she did invade the Black Order at the end of season 3, season 4, whatever.
Yeah.
She did actually do that, and it shows her actual abilities of shape-shifting and being terrifying, but the episodes before that did not exist. So she was never like this sexy cat lady thing that wants to just overthrow the plot. She's not like that. She's actually really terrifying.
Oh, so they introduced her too early?
Too early, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like, she does show up, but not to the extent that the anime portrays
No.
her as.
And, like, she was one of the people that ticked me off,
in the
too.
manga, I don't remember.
She ticked me off a lot because she was the type of person that's like, I'm just going to send assassins after them, or I'm just going to stab them in the back. And there's, like, so many times when she could have killed Alan or Lavi or anyone else, and she didn't. And it was, I hate characters that try to do mind games and then get outplayed by stupid, simple things.
Yeah. If that does happen in manga, I don't remember it because I genuinely, I read this like a really, really long time ago, and I only picked up the recent chapters. But from my memory, she did not exist like that in the manga.
No, that's perfectly legit.
But that brings me up to the question that I kind of got a little heated in the DMs. Why don't you like Tyki? Tiki's another Noah.
So
I mean, it's obvious reasons why, but I want to know your logic.
Tyki, for me, he had potential because he had that like light side, dark side dichotomy that he liked to play into, and I felt like they didn't do enough with the light side dynamic, where like they showed a little like a flashback or two and be like, yeah, I like hanging out with these regular dudes and giving this kid, I think his name was Easy, like buttons of the people he killed. And I'm like, okay. And then that was about it. And it was almost more of like, no, he's just more dark side, and the good side of it was just kind of like an excuse.
Kind of like a facade.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think they could have played that up a little bit more. Also, he felt the exact same reasoning that I didn't like Lulubelle. I felt the same with him, was that he played with his food a lot when fighting. I felt like he was constantly like, okay, I'm going to just let my butterflies try to kill Kanda. Or I'm just going to let them do it. Or he would...
Especially when you see what his actual power is.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And it was just... There was a lot... He made a lot of assumptions, and it annoyed the crap out of me. And part of me...
into his character, though, and I'll argue this. He's kind of a himbo and stupid.
Yeah.
He's kind of dumb.
Well, but the anime doesn't try to portray him as dumb.
Yeah. He has really dumb moments, and it's just like, oh, like, I could have done that. Why didn't I do that sooner? And he's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
My best friend and I are both obsessed with this series, and we've actually had conversations where like, nah, he's not smart, like he's a dumb idiot.
Well, yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah, like they're the whole my other issue was like he killed Alan. Like, I guess we're going into super spoiler territory there, but it's my podcast. I don't care.
So I can tell you who the 14.
Yeah, he killed Alan and then just kind of walked off. And then part of me is like, okay, he never killed someone and then that someone came back to life. Like, he truly believed that guy was true and dead. Mm-hmm. But part of me is also like, why don't you make sure he's true and dead? He never really made sure.
Mm-hmm. He probably assumed that the T's were just going to eat him, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, there was just so many assumptions by him, and
yeah,
honestly, that's just a shonen trope in general, and that was honestly probably what it, like, made me so with D.Gray-Man.
In a way, it was also plot armor, and D.Gray-Man kind of falls victim to that early thousands plot armor devices, which really sucks, but for a product of its time, you kind of have to expect it at that point.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's unfortunate, but
yeah, I was sitting there. I was like, it's very cliche. If you know the shonen cliches, it makes no bold moves.
You know, and it also kind of plays into, especially with Lena Lee, the shonen cliches of fan service.
Yeah.
Like the episodes where her brother was going crazy over like, oh, like, someone better not be dating my daughter. Oh, my God.
That was
my sister, blah, 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 blah.
That was
like, I love
so
Kamui.
Annoying.
I love Kamui when he's not being stupid.
I do too. Honestly, like, character. I was loving him the last part. Like, the last half, I thought he was great. And part of me was like, well, the way that they set him up as a goofy character and then him getting serious, I kind of like that idea, but he was
not
probably
as often as it was.
Yeah, he was probably just too goofy in the beginning.
Yeah. He, towards the end of the series, this is the only way I can really put it. He has big dick energy.
Yes.
Because he will put his foot down and be like, no, these are my exorcists. You can't do that with them. Or he'll come up with sneaky ways to protect them from whatever Central's trying to do. So, let me break that down really quick.
Yeah, go for it. Central and how...
Yes, Central's hell, literally. Yeah. So, within the Black Order, there are different factions. And in the Black Order, we primarily focus on the European branch, which is where Kamui and Lena Lee and Alan and Kanda and Lavi and all of them are from. So, they are more primarily in, like, they don't really express where it actually is, but it's kind of assumed to be like Britain.
Yeah.
Almost. And Central is more like the Vatican. Like, they're the big guys. Like, they control all the branches. And the problem with Central is that they have this whole notion that what we say goes to the branches. Doesn't matter who you are, what you are, whatever. Oh, if your life's on the line, sorry, it's for the war. Bye.
Yep, they literally see exorcists as pawns.
So a lot of the branch leaders like Kamui and Bak Chang, they're like, no, like, these are actual children that you're pulling into the war because they are accommodators. They don't have a choice in that. You cannot put them out there and be like, oh, well, sorry, you're going to die. Now, Central, this is how bad Central is. Central is not above warfare.
Yeah.
With children, child soldiers, child labor, experimentations on children.
Oh, yeah.
Creating children like, to experiment on.
Kidnapping
taking
children.
Things from dead bodies and putting them in children. Kidnapping children. They are the shittiest of shitty human beings because they're everything that they think justifies the means, they will go for it. And I'm sorry, I have to say it. The biggest person that we know in the cast that this affects is Kanda.
Really?
And Kanda becomes such a very beloved character that when you find out what Central did to him, you're like, no, I hate Central. Fuck this war. Fuck them.
Interesting. Bye. Okay. Yeah, that must be in the manga territory. I also haven't seen Hollow.
No, it's Hollow.
Oh, I haven't seen Hollow. So, yeah.
Oh, you should.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
it's in Hollow.
basically
It
ended the
explains it.
series, and I was like, okay, let's go for it.
As short as it is, it explains a lot for Kanda. And
Okay.
it is okay. It is. It's like D.Gray-Man is dark, and then Hollow is just like infinitely darker.
Yeah. I mean, what I kind of wanted to do was pick up the manga because I had heard how Hollow was, and so I was going to pick up the manga and then catch up, and then maybe we could do like a follow-up
I picked up
episode.
the manga right after. Yeah, I picked up the manga right after the Black Order was destroyed, or the Black Order's European branch was destroyed, and that's when Hollow starts. I do highly recommend you start there.
Yeah, that's where I plan on doing.
Because there's so much that goes on that you kind of need the smallest bits of context to understand the whole severity of the situation, essentially, because it's dark. It is very dark. D.Gray-Man goes from a dark shonen to like immensely worse.
Berserk levels.
That makes sense. I wouldn't say Berserk levels. I would say maybe like a step or two before Berserk. Because there's not like rape or anything. I mean, there's implications of it, but it's not actually shown.
Yeah.
Well, kind of the same themes of genocide, though.
Yeah.
If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, Berserk is.
Yeah.
So,
anyways, back to D.Gray-Man. So, one thing that I kind of thought about when I was watching it was the Akuma for a while kind of got on my nerves as well with, I guess, the whole level up structure where it felt very predictable. And I guess maybe this is just because I've seen enough shonen by now, but it was like level 1. I mean, the second they said level 1, I'm like, okay, we're going to have a level 10 by the end of the series. Like, what are we building up to? But it's one of, they try to use these levels to kind of show where everybody's at in the power scaling wise.
Yes.
And then basically once everybody reaches that benchmark, then that level becomes utter trash. They're always constantly defeated. So like when Lena Lee finally beat the level 3 Akuma, I thought that was some serious shit there because she took so long to beat it, and it took her all, and it was pretty much her at full power, and she was like the first known person to beat a level 3. I think that's what they stated. Of the cast. I mean,
besides the God Generals,
yeah, and then the level 3 just kind of became pawns later on. It literally became
Tales of the Abyss.
Yeah, it literally became, how big of a creature can we make? And then I as soon as they were going like big size, I was going to be like, they're going to make a little dude next. And that's what they did with the level 4.
Yep. So my best friend and I kind of sat there once, and we were kind of debating like the structures of Akuma. And we were like, did you realize that when they get higher in level, they become more and more human? And they have more human qualities. And
I did notice
specifically came about when the level 4 finally showed up. And we were like, okay, well, what is the significance of that? Because it's not really mentioned or even really given any hints as to why they evolve like that. Is it the purpose of them trying to become more human? Are they trying to do that? Are they trying to become superior humans like the Noahs? Who knows?
I mean, the Millennium Earl knows.
Come back here. I need to know.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did pick up on the fact where he's like, man, all these exorcists, they're looking at the Akuma as like mere weapons, but they're more than that. Like they're completely blinded by the Akuma. I'm like, yeah, I have a feeling about that. Still, the fact that he was able to take out the entire country of Japan.
Oh yeah.
That was kind of crazy.
Base. Yeah. Yeah, okay, not gonna lie, the giant Akuma that had like rotating heads and like long limbs, those things freaked me out.
I was just like, they're there. They're basically a big dude that
and they make like
to keep the other characters busy.
Pentagrams.
Yeah.
And then the arc happened.
Yeah. The arc, you know, I literally texted you that one time. I was like, I'm at the part where Lena Lee gets kidnapped, and that was literally the end of the episode before everyone jumped in. And so I was sitting there, it's like, oh great, they're gonna have to go and find her and save her. And then
sitting there, I was like, which one? Like which part?
Yeah. And I was just so happy that they all kind of jumped in after her. Although I was also sitting there like, you guys are taking forever to jump in after her. Like they did the stereotypical shonen thing where they just stood there and watched as she got sucked into the portal.
Yeah. So what did you think about the battles in the arc leading up to practically the biggest plot point?
The battles were fine. I didn't care about Skin at all.
The favorite?
The favorite?
Like, did you have a favorite of the battles? Of the major battles, I should say. Because those are considered one of the biggest fight scenes.
I think I like against Tyki more. Although I have a soft spot for Road.
Mm-hmm.
She's by far my favorite Camelot. My favorite. Your favorite
Noah.
My favorite Noah.
Your last name is Camelot.
I know. I was about to call her Camelot to begin with. I'm like, no, her first name's Road. Anyways, yeah, she's very interesting because she's childish, but she's also got.
She's also the oldest.
She's the oldest. You can tell that she's got intelligence about her. You can tell that she's cunning and smart. Yes, and I guess you can kind of see a theme with me. It's like, I like characters who think.
Or don't seem like what they are.
Yeah. And so I really like her character a lot. Just her personality, too. She's kind of aloof. But
the only thing I had a problem with her in general was the whole Alan obsession.
Yeah.
And like the random kissing in the anime. But besides that, I think she was a really good character.
I didn't mind that at all. I wasn't shipping them, but it was.
You were just like, okay, that happened.
I saw that as she was just trying to be manipulative a little bit.
Yeah, that's a way to think of it.
She's almost treating everything like it's a game. Like that's her whole childish nature.
That's her whole shtick.
Is like everything's kind of a game with her, and so she's playing along with Alan, and maybe those feelings for him were genuine or not. I don't know. I'm that person that's like, I like to think that they were genuine. Like, everyone has genuine feelings until proven otherwise.
She also, interestingly enough, has very, like, I guess protective is the way to describe her relationship with Alan, especially after, kind of like during the events of Hollow and afterwards, mostly because of what happens, or how people react to what happens at the end of the original series. We'll get to that in a second. So, what did you think about episode 93 and on?
That's when he sings and all that. I thought that was pretty cool. They kind of threw in the fact that he could read this language that he and Mana made up. They just kind of threw it in there. Like, there was no foreshadowing at all. So it's just like, okay.
All right. Here's where we're going to get fun. Yeah. Warning for anyone who's listening. I'm about to go into very deep spoilers. Are you okay with that?
Let's go for it.
All right. So, episode 9.
You cut off there.
The musician's score. So, Alan, at this point in the arc, is playing the piano and reading a score that he didn't know that 1, he could read, and 2, he didn't know he could play the piano because he could never play it to begin with. Well, the entire time, and I'm sure you didn't notice this because I didn't notice it after watching it several times. Throughout this series, there are several hints that he is the 14th reincarnated. And okay, let's back this up a little bit. Mater. Remember the Akuma that attacked him? And I forgot exactly what he said, but I think he said something along the lines of like, something like, you're a monster or whatever. But basically, like, he didn't really attack Alan because he knew, like, he couldn't. It is kind of implied, especially by the fandom, that the Akuma were kind of a little bit already aware that he was a Noah, but they couldn't tell who.
Interesting.
And there's other little things throughout the series that you're kind of like, that's a little suspicious. And by that time that you get to episode 93, you don't really pick up on it because you're like, oh, there's no way they're going to make the main character, like, also the main fucking villain. But oh boy.
I never really saw... I mean, I didn't really think the 14th was a villain, but I guess
they kind of painted him as that, especially if you take it from what, like, the Noah's dialogue.
I saw it as
what he did to them. So episode 90.
Yeah,
I can see your gears turning.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting here and I'm like, he betrayed them. I mean, I think this is just one of those where I just need to read on because right now, I'm not convinced that he's an antagonist.
I'm not either, and here's why. So, long story short, and I'm not going to go into too much detail for your sake personally, but so let's back it up a little bit. Episode 93, plays the piano, saves the whole arc, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Finds out now that he has control of the arc, he can do whatever he wants with it. But guess who's telling it to him that he can play the piano? Cross fucking Marion.
Yep.
What does this fucker know? How did he know that Alan can play the piano? How did he know he could read the score? What is his relationship with the 14th? How does he know that this is going to happen if Alan does it? Why does he know only Alan can do it? So, after...
Why did he pick Alan to begin with? You know?
Why? It's an arc. Everyone... Yeah, why did he, like, single Alan out? After the events of the arc, now Alan goes into, like, this identity crisis. Because he was like, this is a Noah's power. Why do I have a Noah's power? What's going on with my body? Why am I suddenly, like, able to do what something only a Noah or the Millennium Earl is supposed to do? Why am I suddenly having... Oh, that's the other hint. The dreams that he has with the random shadow.
Yeah.
The shadow is Nea, the 14th.
Oh.
And he shows up again in episode 93 because he's the black shadow with the bow.
Yeah.
And he has frequent dreams about him.
I was going to say, there was even an episode later on.
As the series goes on, everyone... Yeah, he still shows up.
Yeah.
So everyone finds out, like, oh, you're possibly the 14th. And now we get into the whole shit show of the entire rest of the series where things just go from bad for Alan to 1,000 times worse. And you kind of are left with the question. I can't, like, say much because you're going to read it, or I'd hope you'd read it. But you get left with the question of, how did Cross know that? Why was Cross missing for most of this series? What was he doing? Why is Alan involved in whatever Cross is doing? How did Cross know it? What does this mean for Alan? What's going to go on with the plot? And the biggest one of them all, who the fuck is the 14th? What did the 14th do? And like you said earlier, like, you know that the 14th betrayed the Noahs, and they kind of talk about that in the series a little bit. But as you go into Hollow and the chapters after that, you find out how or what he did, why he did it, his relationships with them, his relationships with the Exorcists and the Black Order and everything. But long story short, Nea represents a third side to the war.
Cool. I always like it when wars have a little bit of a dynamic there. Actually, I was really happy, not happy, but I liked it a little bit when they started killing off characters, because then it added some emotional weight to it. Now, there were some minor characters, like the scientists, but they started killing off people, and like Johnny can't have a friend save his life. Poor Johnny.
Nope. Deja died. Suman Dark died. And these were characters that like you get introduced to, and like you know they're obviously going to be side characters, but they kind of paint the brutality of what can happen to literally anybody.
Yeah,
which kind of sucks because the main characters have plot armor, and you obviously know that because it's an early 1000s show and series. But the deaths of characters paint what can happen to anyone. Like it's the reality of what people are going through. Like there are. Like earlier, Japan completely decimated, completely gone. Towns getting wiped out, countries getting wiped out. Everything is a lot worse than it seems to be on the surface. And it kind of feels like the Exorcists are fighting like an invisible war, because not everybody believes in the Black Order. Not everyone believes in Akuma until it happens to them.
Yeah. And it's... I was going to say, going along with that, I kind of had a running joke with myself, which was, how long can a character... I was like, don't believe a character is dead until you don't see him the next episode. So you got to last an entire episode without that character before having any hint of belief that they were dead. And literally, the next episode after Alan died, he is shown to be alive again. I'm like, yep.
There's one character that does not apply. Or, I mean, it kind of...
Well, I was going to say...
does apply. We don't know where he is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know.
Is it Johnny's friend, or the scientist dude that turned into a skull?
Oh, honey, you got a big storm coming.
All right. Yeah, let's see now. But like the second that like Konda died, and I'm sitting there and the whole arc deal, I was like, okay, how are they gonna bring Konda back? And my theory while watching it was that the reason why Miranda couldn't pick him up was because he got transported to the other arc. He got downloaded into the other arc. And that was my running theory up until the end, where they're like, no, Alan just has a massive reverse Uno card.
Yeah, because he can control the arc.
Yeah.
And he didn't know that.
True, he didn't know that, but it was kind of weird that, like, the majority of the arc got transferred
Alan
over.
with the reverse card in his hand.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. It's like, if the majority of the arc was sent over to the other ship, why did they return? Although Alan also could do anything, because it's literally like the piano listens, or the arc listens to what he desires, his hopes. And so he hoped for his friends back.
Yep.
And that they could all return home. Yep. And that's what repaired the ship. I don't know, it seemed kind of like an ass pull, but it's also a series that you can't kill off all your characters.
Yes and no, especially because his use of the arc becomes very important later on. So I guess there was really no better time to really introduce it, especially if the whole battle scene was in the arc. You can't really like... I can kind of understand why you can't really plan that kind of move thoroughly enough without making it seem like an asshole.
Yeah.
Because that whole part of the series was very intense with trying to set up the main plot point, which was the whole 14.
Yeah. So
shit. But that's the writing kind of also fell off a little bit there because it's the end of what they decided to animate, which really sucked because they were just getting to.
Yeah. Let's see now.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
I'm so obsessed with this series. My Christmas angel is Tim Campy. I put him up there every year. And I have 3 rats that are named after 3 different characters in the series. And they are 3 Noahs. Can you guess what they are?
Tyki.
Nope.
Justera?
No, not him.
I was gonna say Just Devi.
Yeah, no.
Road?
The one you won't know, because he's in the manga.
Yeah, I was gonna say the 14th.
14th, Naya. Yep.
Yeah. Lulubelle?
Nope.
Not Lulu. Alan?
Oh shoot, you might not know that the one is a Noah. Ugh.
We'll say.
I'm not gonna say it.
Is it Mana?
I'm not gonna say it. It is Mana, yeah.
Okay, because the reason why I picked up on that was because they never showed his face throughout, and I was actually I wanted to bring that up at some point, where I was sitting there and I was like, they've never really showed Mana's face.
There's a reason, yeah.
And also, for some reason he was able to curse Alan where no one else has.
Yeah.
And it was just a whole lot of like. I think they even showed a silhouette towards the end where they showed a guy that looked very much like Alan or very much like Mana. I think even a couple times towards the end there, and I was sitting there, I was like, it's gotta be Mana.
Yeah, he has a lot to do with the Earl and the Noahs and all that. So does Naya, obviously. And then the last one, which you haven't met yet. Oh no, you'll meet him in Hollow. Wisely. Wisely's a little shit gremlin. Oh. And he is kind of arguably one of the most terrifying Noahs if you use his abilities correctly.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
So I think you'll have fun with him. You might like him. He's a very smart one.
Okay, yeah, probably.
He's a good one. But yes, the series, I highly recommend it, even though it has a lot of its flaws and points that we talked about here. It is definitely a very good series for anyone who likes dark shonen, or even darker shonen, I suppose.
I will
That's what I would classify it as. I don't actually know what it is classified as.
The first couple, or first several episodes, first 20 to 30 even, I had a hard time seeing it. Like, it was visually too dark for me.
Yes. Yeah. That, especially if you have, like, darker monitors, or if you're on, like, a TV or something, the scene setup and the animation in general was just very dark.
Yeah. They did brighten things up or create more contrasts later on, but that was something that I noticed early on.
Yeah, that... Again, early thousands was kind of at fault for that. Sorry, I just like choked on my words.
It's all good. Gotta say, we didn't really talk much about Miranda or Crawlery, but wait,
what did you think about the Crawlery fight with Yazdevi?
I actually liked that.
That was a
really good fight. Crawlery is just really cool.
I was very impressed.
I was really disappointed that he was out the entire last part of the series. Like, he was out in a coma. But that whole fight, like, literally knocked him out.
Yeah. That was a tough fight too, because like, okay, Yazdevi looked like an edgy early thousands scene kid.
Yes.
And it was kind of funny, but at the same time, like, the fact that he could use his hair as a weapon was kind of terrifying, and the fact that Crawlery is an exorcist okay, so for those who don't know Crawlery, he looks like a vampire, and he has an innocence, which is the weapon that exorcists use, that is his teeth. So, take someone who has a long range attack, like Debbie with his hair, and someone with a very short range attack with Crory and his teeth.
Very
and puts
limited.
The two dots together.
Yet he somehow still manages to beat up Akuma
be screwed
all
over,
the
but
time.
he somehow pulls it off.
Yeah.
He bites into them and they explode.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just kind of like that concept. I think I was actually looking up like a fight scene of D.Gray-Man once because it was mentioned in Gintama, and they were spoofing they were spoofing Akumas, and I was like, oh, what the hell is an Akuma? So I looked up just a random fight, and I saw Crory in it, and it was like a Crory and Levi versus one of the Akuma. And I thought it was Levi and against Crory, and then just some weird monster thrown in. Like, I was so confused because of how Crory looked so evil, and then they started working together, and I was even more confused. But
he looks evil, but he's a good boy.
Oh, he's so adorable.
He's a baby.
He's so cool.
He's so innocent. I felt so bad
both
for
him and Miranda. They're both Miranda. I don't know how, but she made it to the Chinese order, even though I think Alan sent her to the European.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that happened, to be honest, but it's not uncommon for exorcists to be transferred or shared between the branches.
True.
Case in point, Kanda.
But
Kanda.
This was at the point where Alan didn't really know much about the Chinese branch. Or the Asian branch, and yet she still somehow managed to get there, although I thought he sent her to headquarters.
I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But either way, her ability is, I want to not OP, because it's definitely not OP, but it can be if you use it the right way. But it's a very interesting idea for her ability.
Yeah, they pretty much sideline her as a support character.
Yeah, I mean, with her ability, it's kind of understandable why.
Yeah.
For those who don't know Miranda, her ability is she has innocence that comes from a clock, and what she can do is she can activate the clock and make like this barrier that can reverse time. So if someone steps inside that barrier with heavy duty wounds, the wounds will reverse. But the problem is that as soon as they step outside of that barrier, the wounds will come back.
Yeah. And she gets very emotionally afflicted.
Because she doesn't want to let go of them, because anyone that steps in there, she's like, you're going to die if you leave this barrier.
That whole ship arc, that was
rough.
That was definitely rough. But I was very tempted to be texting you during that, be like, man, these sailors are the bros here. They're like, yeah, we've already been hit. Ooh, had the cough. We've already been hit.
That was a tough.
We'll just shield you, Miranda. We'll just be your shield. And I'm just sitting there like, bro, these sailors.
Yeah. So, another thing for context, if you get hit by an Akuma bullet or like an Akuma weapon, Akumas have this poison that once you get hit with it, your body will start turning to ash. There are cases though where someone has gotten hit in like the finger and they just cut their finger right off, and then they were able to stop the virus before it traveled. But most cases it doesn't happen.
Or they're Alan Walker or someone else who can just purge
someone else
it from
has a
their
parasitic
body.
type innocence.
Yeah.
Parasitic type innocence, for context also. Like I said, innocence is the weapon that people use. Parasitic innocence for exorcists is innocence that's embedded inside of their body. So it's kind of like a natural purifier. But if you're someone who has like an equipment type innocence where it's an extension of yourself, you cannot purify the Akuma virus if you get afflicted by it.
I was going to say, why don't you actually explain innocence a little bit? Because we kind of just glossed over it. We didn't even really talk about what innocence even is and why the Noahs want it.
Innocence essentially is there's this like it's like a cube kind of thing that was created in ancient times, and it kind of broke off into pieces and became shards of innocence. And when these shards are implanted into people or things, they give them supernatural abilities, or they cause supernatural phenomenon. In an example being, the one was embedded in a tree and it caused like an eternal snow or like eternal winter or whatever, and it was really, really bad. So they had to go and solve that issue. So the purpose of exorcists when it comes to the innocence is they're trying to find the innocence to put it into good hands or good use, quote unquote, before the Noah do. Now, the Noah's purpose of finding innocence is, number one, innocence is their number one weakness. It is the only thing that can hurt them and make them sustain heavy damage if they get hit with it. And then number two, the Earl is searching for something called the heart. The heart of the innocence is kind of...
It's connected to all other innocence, and
connected to all other innocence, and this goes into hollow territory. It is sentient. So
we kind of get that vibe towards the end where various innocents are sentient. They have wills of their own.
Yes. Yeah. So it's kind of indicated that either he wants to destroy it or he wants to harness it. It hasn't really been discussed very much yet because right now they're focusing on the whole 14 thing, but that's the whole premise of innocence. So what the Black Order does is they'll find these pieces of innocence and they'll fuse them into weapons, make things that exorcists can use to fight the Noah and stuff, etc., etc. However, going back to the theme of sentient innocence, every single piece of innocence is sentient to a degree, meaning that if some random person is given a piece of innocence, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can activate it, meaning activate their magical abilities. So an example being the dark boots is what Lena has, and the dark boots have pieces of innocence in them. However, when she was growing up, they found her and they said, hey, like, the innocence has chosen you. You are the accommodator. You have to come with us. And Kamui was like, she's only 4.
Yeah.
You can't take her without taking me. So the Black Order took her from him, and he was like, nope, I'm going to protect my baby sister. Because they had tested on several children to see who the dark boots would accommodate with, and they could not find anyone until they found Lena Lee. So this goes back to that central thing where they test on children. Is this innocence going to be, is it going to work with you? What's your accommodation level? What's your synchronization rate? Is it 100? Is it 80? Is it 90? Is it 10? And the problem with if you have a really low synchronization rate is that the innocence will turn on you and it can kill you. And it will create things like the Fallen Ones, where the innocence will mutate your body and kill you from the inside out.
Yeah, and then you pretty much turn into a weapon of mass destruction.
And it's a lot darker than just, oh, it's a magical weapon. No, it's literally a weapon. They make it into a weapon made for mass destruction. And some people are born with it. Like Alan Walker, he was born with his arm. And I
was going to say, they never really go into Alan Walker.
He did have a lot of compatibility with his arm. He had a lot of compatibility to begin with his arm, which was great, even though it was mutated. But he still never had 100%. The only people who truly have 100% control of the synchronicity with their weapon are the generals, like Cross Marion.
Who has 2.
Yeah, Cross Marion. Oh my God. Winter Sokolo, like all of them. They have 100% synchronicity with their weapon, and they can control it 100%. Now, again, innocence is the main weapon used against the Noah. And you see the kind of damage that it can cause to them when you get into fights with the Noah. An example being when Tyki versus Alan happens. Essentially at the end of the series, Tyki gets hit in the chest with Alan's arm that was kind of like leveling up in a way, because at that point he had Crown Clown, which was like a massive upgrade for his arm. He gets hit with the sword and it creates a giant gash in his chest that is not healing over, because Noah's like I said before, are superhumans. They are super beings. They can heal from practically anything. They can survive practically anything. But if they get hit with innocence, they will not heal immediately. So they can be killed.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. I don't know. They never really explained how Road and Tyki survived. I mean, they might later on in Hollow. But,
and there's a reason.
Okay. Because, I was sitting there, and part of me was like, yay, Road survived, because I'm kind of a simp for her. I just love her character. But
she's got very interesting abilities, and I think you're really gonna like her once you get into the manga more, because she is insanely complex. And same thing with Cross. You'll probably love Cross.
Cool, because right now he's kind of just a mysterious asshole. Like, I'm kind of sitting here, and I'm like, he's kind of reminds me of Red Hair Shanks and Gildarts put together a little bit. He's just that male, red-headed father figure that's never there, and the characters are constantly looking for them.
He kind of has an interesting premise to him, because, like you said, he's kind of like that mysterious asshole. You know a lot about him, but at the same time he has such a heavy impact on the entire story, which a lot of times, like, animes and mangas don't really have a lot of characters that don't show up a lot but also have that kind of impact. There is a specific chapter in the manga that it's kind of like it's a conversation between him and Alan, and it's kind of like him saying, are you going to walk the road that was forged for you, or are you going to create another and walk your own path? And that is single-handedly one of the single pages of a chapter of a manga that stays with me forever, because I don't know what it is about how Cross comes across or whatever, but he is so impactful, not just for Alan, but for the story and for the reader as well, to give not just context to what's going on, but to kind of also give, like, and this is kind of weird to say because Cross is like the least emotional, but more emotional attachment to it and to what's going on, which is kind of, like I said, contradictory, because he's kind of like a mysterious asshole who, like, has no regards for Alan whatsoever. But it's kind of speculated that he actually really does care a lot for Alan, and he doesn't want what happens to him to happen.
Honestly, I always kind of saw him doing the whole tough love type of deal. Like, it seemed like everything he does has a purpose. Like, even when he was trying to get Alan to train with his weapon for the first time, and Alan had that friend that he had to kill.
And an example being, this is discussed in the manga, but it's not a spoiler. So it's already told in the anime that, like, he adopted Alan and he made him, like, become his apprentice since he was really young, since Mana died and all that stuff. In the manga, there is a specific like a little flashback that goes to when they his house, the grandmother, and it was when Alan was, like, really, really little, and he was still just dealing with the fresh death of Mana and everything, that he would have constant nightmares at night, and he would wet the bed and everything, and he would come down the stairs and, like, cry, and Cross would go up and clean him up and take care of everything and, like, put him back to bed and take care of him. And I was like, wow, you never get to see that side of Cross, like, at all throughout the series, but then you find out that, like, in the past he really did care for Alan when he was little. So, I mean, later on he obviously didn't, because, like, he put him in so much shit, but at the same time, it kind of gives him more context that he really does care about Alan. It doesn't seem like it, but there are things that go on that it's kind of understandable why he's trying to not get attached, because he knows what's going to happen. And it really, really sucks, but at the same time, he does care for Alan a lot. He knows what's going to happen, and he can't afford to feel what it's gonna feel like when it does. Yeah, he's a very complex character. I think you're really gonna like him.
I bet. I've got ideas. I've got I got a direction at least. You're pointing me in a direction.
He's something. He's yeah. I can't say anything past that because
no, I get it. And honestly, like we're about 10 minutes over, so
that's all right. I talk a lot. I told you I would talk.
Oh no, that's perfectly fine. With me being sick, I'm sitting here just trying to keep myself together.
To live.
But I had fun.
For anyone who watched, I highly suggest D.Gray-Man. You should check it out. Also on my channel, I did a lot of D.Gray-Man covers, and I also cosplay a lot of D.Gray-Man characters. So you should check out my channel.
You heard that? Check it out, D.Gray-Man stuff. So.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again.
Not a problem. This is fun. This is fun. We gotta have you back to do part 2 when I finish the manga, or catch up.
Part 2 of JoJo. Oh.
I've seen up to part 2. I haven't seen up to part 3. I've seen all part 2.
I will rip part 2 to shreds. It is my least favorite part.
Really? Because I had fun with part 2.
But that's a conversation for another time. I'm ripping part though.
I would like to hear you and KOB talk about this.
You should get the Dumb Trio in a podcast.
Well, sure.
Dumb Trio, come on.
Okay,
you know
that sounds good. I think I've already had each of you individually. Like, why not?
We should just do a whole JoJo podcast.
That honestly might work. Anyways,
actually finish the rest of it.
That's neither here nor there. Anyways, you want to plug your socials or whatnot?
Sure. I am APhantomChimera on practically everything except for Twitch. You will find me under current. It's APhantomChimera TTV, but I'm gonna switch it back to TV. So I mean, either way, if you search up APhantomChimera practically on anything, you will find me. I am the redheaded lady with the witch outfit.
Yeah.
You'll find me there. Yeah. I gotta make more art. But yeah, that's where you can find me. So please come find me. Thanks. I don't bite a lot, I promise.
All right. And so with all that being said, I'm the AnimeOveranalyst, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Bye.
Talking Nerdcore today. We're talking nerd.